Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is...
Bill D'Angelo of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles, Aikido, 4th Dan.
So what should we talk about today, Bill?
So we have another listener question or listener comment, and it is, at what ranks or what stage do students tend to leave their Aikido training?
Typically, usually it's in the first month.
So if they haven't left in their first month, what are because I think that we've talked about this, there are stages, 2 critical stages that students tend to leave their training, and they have different reasons for that. So what are the stages that students tend to leave?
Well, it's typically in this dojo, it's around 3rd kyu and 3rd dan. I think it comes down to these.
And for those who are not super familiar with ranking in our dojo, which is similar to the Kano Sensei structure, what are kyu and dan rankings? What does that mean?
Kyu are white belt or colored belts, and dan are black belts. So in this dojo, it goes 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kyu, and then 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th dan.
And dans are black belts.
Dans are black belts.
Okay.
So it's easy just to pick an arbitrary number like, oh, it's 3rd kyu or 3rd dan, but that's when it usually happens.
And if you've been training in our school, just so people can understand, have a sense, how long will you have been training if you leave when you reach your 3rd kyu stage?
3rd kyu is somewhere around 3 to 5 years. 3rd dan is somewhere around 12 to 15 years.
Okay.
So let's just take off the table, you just get sick of training. Let's take the thing off the table, you moved away, you got injured, you take those off the table. The thing about it is that every person goes through these 3 stages of development where they do Aikido with their body, physicalness, pushing, pulling, using physical strength, speed, your stamina, to transfer to where you have to do Aikido only with your technique, to transfer to where you can only do Aikido with your mind, and then later you only do Aikido with your spirit.
Right.
Because at every stage of the game, as you get older, things start to drop away. What you could do in the first year of training, you can't do in your 30th year of training.
Right, or 40th.
Yeah. And so it becomes this thing where usually those people leave, it's a mental thing. It's a mental physical thing, I would say. And it has to do with effectiveness.
And we're talking first about 3rd kyu.
3rd kyu. But 3rd kyu and 3rd dan, they're both about effectiveness. That's where you really start to see, because 3rd kyu is where you start to get a hang of Aikido. What you do looks, as Ken Watanabe would say, it looks like Aikido.
Okay.
And so when you start to get a hang of it, you start to go like, well, I don't know.
I mean, are you saying that by the time you get to 3rd kyu, the movements that you're making, you can do Ikkyo, Nikkyo, you can do Tenkan, but now you're like, all of a sudden you say to yourself like, well, if this person did this to me, I'm not sure that it's going to work, or like you...
Yeah, too many options on the table.
Ikkyo,
Kotegaeshi, Shihonage, what do I do?
You all of a sudden you have existential doubts about your technique.
Yeah, because you don't really know how to do it. You know what to do, but you don't know how or when to do it, because it's not truly second nature. And so that's where you start to think you're kind of all that, this 3rd kyu, and then someone at a party chokes you out. Someone at a party knocks you out. Someone says, what are you going to do? And then you go, oh, I don't know. And then you quit. And then 3rd dan is where you go, you're supposed to know supposed to know everything.
Right.
And then you go, my God, I don't know nothing. And then you just think, I don't know. I just have my doubts, right? So one, you're doubting it from a physical standpoint, and then the other one, you're doubting it from a mental standpoint, but it's about doubt, self-doubt. So 3rd kyu, you're like, okay, if someone were to grab me, then I would do this thing. It's not second nature. 3rd dan, it's already second nature, but then you're like, it kind of doesn't work. I kind of didn't really know. I thought I knew it, but then I don't really know it. And then I used to use speed or physical strength, and I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Now I'm 30, now I'm 40, now I'm 50, and I don't know how to do it. So then what do I do? So they think that's really about doubt, right? And so you have to, I don't know, believe in Aikido. You have to whatever it is, but those are the times. At every point in your training, you will be confronted with some challenge.
Right.
That challenge can be mental. That challenge can be physical, and it's as you surmount these challenges, we learn things about ourselves. So at third Q, you're just like, and I wish these people would just come talk to me first, and then I would be like, look, I've been there. I know what you're talking about. I know I get it.
Do I know that, like, for me, I didn't test for third Q. Do you think it makes a difference if you test for third Q in this psychological battle?
I don't think it makes a difference.
You don't think it makes a difference?
Because in Furuya Dojo, back in the day, they didn't test for anything but Shodan.
Right.
And the Shodan test was the fourth Dan test, and so you were either good to go or you weren't.
Right.
But also, Furuya Sensei wanted you to focus on your training and not focus on a test, because you wanted you to be very well-rounded. People who focus on the test become very singular focused. They can only do these certain things when training is not like that. You know, like for instance, we just published our curriculum. We never had a curriculum before. It was an old, we follow the old style of teaching, which is the teacher teaches, you follow, you watch, you copy, you do whatever the teacher does.
Right.
No talking. But today people want to know, so now we publish our curriculum. But then the curriculum, I noticed now, is very hard for people to do when the students aren't on the same page. So like for instance, we've been doing Yokomichi Tenshin Ikkyo.
Right.
And which requires you to be able to tension, and then it requires you to do Ikkyo, and it's very difficult.
I mean, because of the going underneath part?
Not because you're going underneath, too many moving parts. Right?
Interesting.
And so you go, oh yeah. So then I had to come up with all these like build-ups. We do this thing which builds this thing up, and then you add it back into the mix. But if you weren't able to build a build-up, then you're just going to fumble through the techniques.
Right.
And then nobody likes to fumble. Everybody wants to flow. So then they're just going to just do any old thing. And then when they do any old thing, they're going to end up doing the wrong technique.
Right. Right.
And then things get all messed up. So that's the hard part of letting people do whatever they want.
But you don't think that because we don't test for third Q, I'm just curious.
But we test now.
We test now for third Qs.
We test now all ranks.
All ranks.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, do you think it will affect, I guess you think the answer would be yes, is that now that we're going to test, that hopefully having some sense of mastery over a certain curriculum will alleviate or reduce some of the questioning. No, you don't think it will?
No. Because you're giving something which helps person allay their fears, but then that doesn't really allay their fears. Only time and experience will do that. Only time and experience, and if you just keep on going, will you let go of that thing. Because you can't let go of like if you're third Q and then you don't know how to make the technique second nature yet, there's nothing you could read. There's nothing you could do there. You could just go, Satori, enlightenment, that you go, oh yeah. So like one time when Furuya Sensei was a priest, the temple was down the street from the dojo, and I'm standing outside the dojo talking to the student, and the student was saying, like, I think I've told the story before about how Shotokan, we should be doing Shotokan karate at the same time as Aikido, so that you have both Aikido and Shotokan, and it balances you out and all this stuff. And I'm listening to this student, oh yeah, and then Furuya Sensei walks by, and they go, hello Sensei, and all this stuff. So then the next day, Furuya Sensei calls me in the office. He goes, what were you guys talking about? And I go, and as a naive young person, I just went, oh, we were just talking about how Aikido doesn't really work and how you need Shotokan to balance out your training. Oh my God, Sensei flipped out on me. And he was like, and by the way, I was probably third Q at the time.
Right.
He flips out on me and he's like, you don't know anything. You don't have the experience to understand those things. And he ripped me up. You know, you aren't qualified to say if Aikido is real or not real. You haven't done it enough.
Right.
And then the next day the guy's like, hey man, so about that Shotokan, and I was like, dude,
don't
not for nothing,
it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, but like but at that time I went, yeah. And at that time in the 90s, cross training was a big thing. Oh, we do kendo with this and karate with judo and all this because you cross train. But in the Fruta Dojo, we didn't cross train. There was no time to cross train. You train 7 days a week. You train
except for Iaido.
Well, but even Iaido was not you still trained. You still did Aikido on the days you did Iaido.
Right.
So you wouldn't just spend another day, doing all this stuff. And then Fruta Sensei also did not allow you to do Iaido until you were a black belt in Aikido.
Right.
Or almost a black belt in
Right.
Aikido. But that's that thing, right? You're trying to, I don't know. The thing is that you're afraid, you have this doubt that Aikido is for you.
Right.
And it really comes back to you as a human being. And so one is a physical challenge, one is a more mental challenge. Third Q is more physical, third Dan is more mental. Because you think, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to do this stuff.
Do you think the people that leave who leave at third Dan are having like total martial arts breakdowns as opposed to...
It's not so much a martial arts breakdown, it's training exhaustion. I have this theory, which I don't know how true this theory is that you can't train intensively for more than 10 years. And I'm not talking about like training hard. I'm talking like where it's like boot camp, prison,
Right.
all that type of stuff, where you are training at such a high stress level. You can only do that high stress level training for 10 years.
And then what happens?
You have to
take a break.
Well, no, it's not you have to take a break. Everything has to become. You have to make your life easier. So, like if you read David Goggins' book, he talks about that a lot of these. I'm not even sure this is true, but he said a lot of special forces operatives have problems with their cortisol levels because
I remember this.
They can't regulate it. But I don't think cortisol levels is the.
Well, he talks about a lot of them have like high blood pressure.
Yeah.
They have cholesterol problems.
Yeah, they have the remnants of stress.
Yeah, they have really high stress problems.
But they have cortisol issues afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't think cortisol is the right word that he used.
Well, I know what I read in his book. He said a lot of them have high blood pressure,
Yeah.
which is related to cortisol issues, and some of the syndrome around.
Well, no, but the way he explained it, I don't think cortisol is the right hormone he's talking about. But not notwithstanding, but it's just that these special forces operatives were under stress for over 10 years.
And then their body stayed that way.
Well, their mind stayed that way.
Their mind stayed that way, yeah.
And then, so you figure, well, why didn't samurais do that? Well, for one, they don't document those things, but two, a person didn't live past 30 or something like that.
Right. But they did. We were going to talk about this as a podcast issue, and maybe this is one of the ways that samurai dealt with this. Was not all samurai did this, but some combined Zen training.
But some of that's fantasy, romanticism. It's not that they did or did not. It's that you only a certain level were able to.
Right.
Right. And only a certain level or after a certain period of time where you had to spend time in Zen, doing Zen training and all that other stuff. Other people were working too hard.
Right.
But that's that thing like where there has to be, and that's where Aikido strives to have strike that balance. Right, as we talked about in the last podcast, most martial arts is all physical, and then the mental, emotional, spiritual kind of catches up. Aikido, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and the physical, it goes hand in hand. And then as you do that, you kind of learn how to regulate yourself.
Right.
Right. That's why there's no talking on the mat. That's why there's no competition. You just train hard. But in our situation under Fruta Sensei, we trained hard, and it was super, super stressful.
It was a lot of stress.
And if I look at every student that I came up with who trained for more than 10 years, it broke them. Right. Because you can't train hard, you can't train stressfully hard for more than 10 years. And I'm not talking about training hard. I'm talking about the stress of training. For like us, you walk to the door, you had to be on.
Right.
You put your hand on the handle, you had to be on. And it's kind of funny because I've been watching this TikToker, YouTube podcaster guy who was in prison for, I think he was in prison for 10 years. And the way when he talks about prison is exactly like the martial arts, the military, and like our stressful training. He said that when you sit down at the table, you can't just slam down. You must sit down and put your tray down quietly because you don't want to disturb the other people eating. Right. And then disturbing some other person eating could cause them to flip out on you and fight you.
Right.
He said, in the thing, when you make sure you go to the bathroom before you go to bed, because in a pod where there's a lot where there's no bathroom in the pod or something like that.
You don't want to wake anyone up.
In the middle of the night, on his like third night there, you're walking up the stairs in the middle of the night and woke up all these people, and then all these people were mad at him the next day. He said the way you never walk up behind a prisoner and touch them on the back. They'll swing on you right then and there. You always have to come up and front them, right? Because then if you came up behind them and startled them or creeped up behind them,
they'll throw down on you.
Yeah, and that was so much like Furuya Dojo back in the 90s. You couldn't knock on Sensei's door and just start talking, because if you didn't have your argument, what you wanted to talk about set, he would attack you. Yeah. You know, like when he asked me, what were you guys talking about? About Aikido's not how Aikido needs. I didn't say that guy was saying this. Right. I did not agree with him, but he was saying this. And so most people just go up and they're like, I want to, and then just start talking. And then Sensei just goes, what did you say? And then whatever word that you didn't mean to say that thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then Sensei goes off on you. If you open the door too briskly, you get in trouble. If you slammed the outside door too strongly, you got in trouble. If you walked through the garden with your backpack
and
on,
brush
the trees, you would get in trouble. If you didn't hold the door for others, you would get in trouble. And if you just did one of these bows that people do, you would get, it's really low head tilt bow, you would get in trouble. If you scrape the wall with your bag going up the wall or down the wall as you're going up the stairs, you would get in trouble. If you talked too long, if you talked while you're getting dressed, you would get in trouble.
Oh yeah, talking in the dressing room was a.
If you took too long to get dressed, people would get mad at you. If you took too long folding your hakama, people would get mad at you.
If you folded your hakama in the wrong place.
Oh my God, if you folded your hakama in the wrong place, your back to the tokonoma, any of those things. So like one time, Furuya Sensei, we had a student who was doing Yaido but wasn't a black belt in Aikido. And after class, he brought his hakama out and was folding it. And he was doing a horrible job. And I go, oh, hey man, let me help you. So I was teaching him how to fold it and all this stuff. And then Sensei comes down and goes off on me. You're not a Yaido student. You have no rank in Yaido. You have no auspices over this person. And just went off on me. And I was just like, I'm showing him we all fold the hakama the same. And then he took me upstairs and tore me up about how my bad attitude was being copied by all these other students. And I was just like, whoa, man, I don't want to help you fold your own hakama, dude. And then when that dude asked me again, hey, can you show me? I go, hey, you should ask Watanabe Sensei to show you.
Yeah.
And then I just bailed. Because every little thing in those old days.
So when you say like 10 years, when you reach third dan in Aikido, that's probably 15 years, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. So if you've made it 15 years, what qualities do you need to have to get past that feeling of like, so if you're leaving after 15 years, you probably have some serious doubts. I've wasted all this time. It's an experience I shouldn't have done. What do you have to do to get past that doubt?
Well, see, the biggest thing that people quit for in the later years and later ranks is that they can't do it physically anymore. I just can't do this physically anymore. Mm-hmm. But what they're missing is that you have to Moriji Mochida, the famous 10th dan kendo teacher, talks about at 70 you're going to lose your legs, right? At 50 you have to have developed your understanding and technical aspects of kendo by the time you turn 50, because by 60 this happens, by 70 this happens, and so on and so forth. So when you start to lose the physicalness of the movement, then self-doubt is going to come in.
Right.
You go, oh man, I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I'm not as powerful as I used to be. I just did that one move and I sprained my ankle. I punched that guy, now I sprained my finger. Oh man. And then that doubt comes in.
Right.
And so at every stage in the game, at every stage of the game, you're using physical, technical, mental, and spiritual power to do the techniques, some more than others.
Right.
When you're beginning, it's all physical, very little technical, very almost no mental and no spiritual. As the higher you go, the more technical, mental, spiritual you get, and then as the farther you go, obviously the older you get, and then by the time you reach 6th Dan, 60 years old, you're not going to be able to do Aikido the same way as you did it when you were 20.
Right.
But the thing is, your mind says you should be doing it at the same level as it was when you were 20. That you're beating up young people, that you're doing this and doing that. And then when you cannot do it physically or technically, self-doubt comes in.
Right.
And when self-doubt comes in, you go, oh, this is not for me. No, you got to learn. One of the greatest lessons I learned from Furuya Sensei is that Furuya Sensei is like 5'6", 5'7", and over like 250 pounds, right? He's my height. I mean, he's a little bit taller than me, but way skinnier than me. Like, I'm very stocky. But he was able to move like so effortlessly.
Right.
And part of that is because he had to give up his physical body.
Right.
Because by then, he had already had two really bad back injuries.
A knee injury.
And 2 really bad knee injuries. And so by not physically being able to work out and having depression and all that stuff, he just gains all this weight. But then he's still able to move because he had the technical aspects mastered, because, I mean, he got his black belt when he was like 13 years old, right? So by then, he'd already been doing Aikido for 45 years.
Yeah.
And so the way he moves that way because he's really heavy on the spiritual, mental, and technical aspects of Aikido,
Right.
and very weak on the physical. But he's able to move because he's given up the physicalness of it. And so when I say it's the greatest lesson, because when you look at it, you have to learn how to do Aikido with no physical or little technical, more mental, more spiritual, or whatever it is where you're working with that. And so when you reach 3rd kyu, you have all this physicalness, you have a little bit of technicalness, but no mental and no spiritual. When you reach 3rd Dan, you may have a little bit less physical, but a lot of technical, but then very little mental and very little spiritual.
Right.
And so that's where you're getting this doubt. But it's not about, and I tell you guys this all the time, it's not about throwing people down. It's not about throwing people down. You got to get rid of the idea of throwing people down.
Right.
Because when that person attacks you, you have to be able to move in. And then the purer you are, the more you've let go of your body, the purer you can move in. The more efficient, smooth. But what happens is, I'm thinking, hi, who I am, embarrassment, and then you can't move in as deeply. So you have to be able to let go of those things, and most people can't.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part, is trying to understand, like, how do I, what stage am I at? Okay, I'm 3rd kyu, got a lot of physicalness, got a little bit of technical, no mental, no spiritual.
What happens for people between 3rd kyu and 1st degree black belt? What is that gulf like?
There's not really that much of a gulf. Because once you pass 3rd, you can see
black belt.
Well, you can see what you think is the goal, and then once you hit the goal, after you hit you pass the goal, got to Shodan. I'm a black belt in martial arts. Did you know that Shodan is 1st degree black belt? Yeah. You know what Sho means? No. What does it mean? Beginner. Damn it.
Yeah.
Let's see how the clock or the counter
starts all over again. And then you're having to go, because the Q ranks, Shodan and Nidan, are just merit ranks. Right.
Sandan, Yondan, 3rd and 4th degree black belt, those are technical ranks. Godan, Rokudan, and above, those are teacher ranks.
Right.
And so when you get to a place where you're a teacher, you should already have gotten all of that out of your system. There's no need to fight people. There's no need to show people it's effective. There's no, like, it was funny, this funny story that Furuya Sensei was giving this lecture at this school of little kids about martial arts. So he's trying to explain to them about Aikido and all these different things, and he's talking about all these highfalutin topics about, like, being a better person, all this stuff. And then one little kid goes, "What do you do when someone grabs you in the balls?" And, like, we were like, in my mind, I was like, oh shoot, what's he gonna say? And then Sensei just goes, well, for one, you shouldn't be grabbing people in the crotch. And then he just like calmly talked his way around it and then moved on.
Yeah.
But he didn't go,
Yeah.
And then he didn't get flustered. He didn't lose a beat. And I was like, wow, that's Aikido right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's that thing, is that you have developed yourself as a teacher to this high level to where you don't have to prove to people things are effective. You don't have to prove Aikido's just. You don't have to prove that there's no need to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah.
I'm here to teach you Aikido. This is my job, right? I'm worried. I think today more about pedagogical things, pedagogical techniques. What if I employ this one? What risk reward? What confidence building thing? What thing? Will this help? Will this work? Will this not work? The silent treatment, all those things. Those are things I think about on a regular basis. I rarely think about the effectiveness of Aikido.
And what you're talking about is that's a whole nother path. As you get more senior as a student, is when you have to flip the switch, and also add in the level of being a teacher as part of your student.
Well, you have to become an instructor at some level, because you have to change your focus on how you look at the techniques.
Right.
So we call this idea Shuhari. Shu is where you memorize the techniques in a rote way, and they're exactly the way that everyone is doing them. Ha is where you really kind of find out the details, right, of the techniques. Ri is where you break the form and they could just move flowingly. So Shu is third kyu. Ha is Sandan, third dan. And Ri is where you kind of break through.
Right.
Where you don't have to you have to worry about effectiveness. You have to worry about these things. Like one time I went to dinner with this Aikido teacher, and he asked me what was the hardest technique at the seminar. And I said, the techniques are not hard at all. It's just physical movement. I said the hardest part was the mental aspects. Because for me, it's all mental. How not to get mad, how not to lose my temper, how not to judge others. And those are the things I worry about. And so for me, it's not so much about, effectiveness, technical prowess. To me, at my level, it's all mental.
So where on the mental path, like between Shodan and Godan, where do students start to be asked to, like in our school, like the first thing you do if you're going to be a teacher, the first thing you're asked to do is do the warm-up. That's your first...
Actually, technically, at this school, the first thing you're supposed to do is teach kids class.
Right, okay, so the first thing you do is teach kids class, and then at some point you're asked to do the warm-up in the adults class before you teach a full class.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the progression. Kids class, teach the warm-up, and then you'll teach a class. At what stages do you, in our school, at what ranks does that occur? And then what are you looking for psychologically in a student to be ready to do those things?
Well, it's a person who has the desire to be a teacher, and then before they even become black belt, they start helping out or teaching kids class. Because in kids class, that's the traditional method, is because you have to learn how to teach in a very succinct, quick way, simple way. The hypotenuse of a 45-degree angle, and what you want to do is center your tanden or the thing of it. Everyone's
Kids aren't going to relate
Kids,
to
they're like this. They're fidgeting, and they don't do what you do. You have to be able to say it in the quickest, shortest, fastest way possible to where they can pick it up and just start doing it. Right? Because they're that malleable. But the more verbose you are, the harder it is for the kids to learn. And so that's where you learn how to be succinct. That's where you learn how to be efficient. And then you also learn things like Furuya Sensei talked about, learning how to carry your voice. You go back straight to the person that you want to say it to, and then they go hi, as opposed to everyone in the room going hi, because they thought you're talking to everyone.
Right.
So you learn how to cast your voice. You learn how to talk to people in a gentle way. And then you also learn how not to just beat up everyone because they're children, right?
Right.
And so you learn all these maturity things, or you mature as a teacher while you teach kids class, even though you're not a black belt yet.
Right.
And so once you become a black belt, in a lot of schools, you automatically start teaching or helping out. But that's the thing. Like if you started helping out with kids class, you would have learned all these things
All
and
the basics.
got out of your system. You would learn how to look at things. You learn how to observe the whole class, and kids are crazy. So you got to watch every kid in the class. You can't be like thinking about some other thing or get too caught up in teaching one person because a kid falls, breaks a window,
Right.
crashes into the tokonoma, and you're like, oh. So you learn how to be observant as a widespread observance as opposed to being super
Narrow.
focused. Because being super focused, you look and go, where it happens all the time at home. Me and my wife go, hey, they're awful quiet. And then we get up and we find them doing something. And we go, hey, you can't be doing that. And so, they're being quiet because they're trying to get away with something.
Right.
And so as a teacher, you're trying to watch the class as a whole and not just focus too much on one person.
Right.
And so you learn all these things. So at every level, you're trying to understand what Aikido is.
So when people start to do the warm up, what do you see like? That's the sort of next step into the adult class as a teacher. What are the sort of challenges that students have when they go to that next step?
From just leading the warm up to leading the class?
No, just doing the warm up.
Oh, just the warm up. They don't do the warm up right. They take too long. They emphasize like one student, like when he goes like, what was the thing that this person is? Like we go like this, right? So that person was doing this.
It differently.
Yeah. Or Mike does this thing where he goes scooping like that, and that's the hard part. You're trying to follow it, copy the warm up exactly how the teacher does it, so that you're trying to, and then when you lead the warm up, there's all these things that happen. How you do the warm up sets the tone for the class.
The whole class.
How you do the warm-up sets the mental aspects of the class, the things that you focus on. While you're doing the warm-up, you're learning to watch people. And you go, oh, Bill's back's really tight today. Oh, Bill's not sitting seiza. His knee must hurt. I probably won't do Shuhari Waza today.
Right.
You look at all these. You go, oh, this guy's got his shoulder injury. Probably shouldn't do Shihonage today.
Right.
So all those things. So you're learning to
So
watch.
It's a chance to observe.
Yeah, you're learning. You get a chance to observe. You're learning how to follow and copy. Follow the teacher, copy the teacher, and then disseminate it in that way. You're learning how to energetically set the tone of the class. So you're learning all these different things while you're just doing the warm up.
So should we be talking or not talking during the warm up? It's like a controversy on that, right?
Well, I mean, other schools notwithstanding, but this school, I only say the exercise when Craig, the student who's visually impaired, is in the class, or when it's a whole bunch of beginners.
Okay.
Typically, you don't go net rotations, tilt to the side, back, turn, whatever. You don't, because the thing is that they're trying to calm their minds down and follow with just their eyes,
Got it.
not follow with their ears. And that's something that you're trying to develop in the class. And so if you constantly calling out like you teach on Monday nights, that's probably not a class in which you need to call out every
No,
exercise.
generally not.
But then if you're, they're going to be that, the whole class is going to be that way. If you're up, they'll be up. If you're down, they'll be down. So, at every stage of your training, there's all these things that you learn to work on. All these little shortcomings, all these obstacles that you're confronted with. And so, like, for instance, when you're at third cue and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should. You come to the teacher and you go, hey, I'm having this problem. And the teacher says, oh, just do this.
Right.
And then you go, oh. And then you work on it, and then you go, oh, that person was right. But rarely people come talk to me and they just quit. And you're like, dude, if you would have just come talk to me, I would have told you, oh, yeah, I've been there. I've done that. Just about everything that you've experienced or are going to experience, I've already experienced. Not because I'm better, I'm just more experienced as a practitioner.
Right.
I have 32 years. You have 2 years. So there's some stuff that I've probably seen or done that can benefit you if you would just ask me, hey, I'm having this problem. But what happens is you become embarrassed. Everybody around me.
Yeah, people do have embarrassment.
Everybody around me knows what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I shouldn't be here. Oh, everyone else can fight in the parking lot, but not me. I should just quit. No,
Yeah.
If you came up to me and said, I don't know which one to do if I get in a fight, I would say, don't worry about fighting. Just
Right.
train. You shouldn't think about the fight. If you think about the fight, that's violence, confrontation. That's not the philosophy of Aikido. You have to let that go, because the phrase that you have to learn and have to really hammer into your soul is, let it go. Let that go.
Yeah.
Whatever that thing is, you gotta just move on.
Well, that's really a thing that people face in every aspect of their life.
Yeah.
People hold on to things, and it leads to anxiety, frustration, depression.
Yeah, because if you look at Miyamoto Musashi's 21 Rules of Living, 21 rules to live the path alone, the very first rule is accept things as they are, right? But in order to do that, as a, kind of a wide swathing topic, accept things as they are, yeah, okay,
It's
well,
very hard to do.
I'm feeling inadequate physically. No, let it go. I feel like I'm not a very good fighter. Let it go.
Yeah.
Because all those things impair the way.
But that as a life rule, whether it's from Miyamoto Musashi, or from a Stoic, or something that you say or I say, that's a very, very hard thing for people to accept.
Yeah.
Because people in our day and age, with social media, Facebook, Instagram, where people continually, I mean, I don't go on it that much, but for people that do, and I'm not saying that because I'm good, it's just I just don't.
You're not of that age.
I'm not really of that group, right? But for people that are, it's difficult because they're constantly confronted with these images or posts that are critical.
Well, not just critical, but people are living their best lives and
or
posting
what
their
appear
best things.
to be their best lives.
And you go, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah, and so how do you? It's hard to accept what you are or what you have or what you think you have when people are posting, maybe doctored, or like I was talking to this friend of mine, this woman who was saying that she has trouble because all her friends, and she even knows this, that they're using filters.
Yeah.
She says, I know my friends are filtering, but I see the images, and I get angst from the images, even though I know they're fake. She says, I know they're fake, but it still causes me angst. And so,
I mean, like the other day, I know this girl from the Japanese American community, and then I'm friends with her on Facebook, and I go, wow, man, like she must have been really working out and got some work done, because I hadn't seen her in a long time, and then I see her on social media, and I'm like, wow, she looks pretty good. And then she posted this picture without the filter, and I showed her, hey, look at look at the filtered one, and we were both like, wow,
it makes a huge difference.
Oh my gosh, like.
It makes a huge difference.
I mean, more than a huge difference, astronomical difference.
So that's like, when you say like accept things as they are, people are able to change things as they are in terms of how you perceive them.
Yeah.
So it's easier if you just don't look, if you want to try to follow that path. But you're right, like accepting things as they are is sort of like the first and almost most important step to being able to confront reality, live live a fulfilling reality. And certainly in martial arts, I think the importance of accepting things as they are is all about having the ability to confront problems. I mean, martial arts is a strategy for confronting violence.
No, a strategy for confronting problems.
Absolutely. But I mean, at the very beginning, martial arts was a strategy for confronting violence, but obviously it expands to confronting everything. But you can't legitimately overcome violence in the beginning and all problems later without admitting what they are. You can't live in a fantasy.
Right. So that's first and foremost. What they say in therapy, the first thing you have to do is realize you have the problem.
You have to realize you have the problem.
Then you have to accept the problem.
Yeah, without it, and I think that's one of the best reality aspects of martial arts is you have to make a realistic assessment of your situation.
Right. And so as we finish up this podcast, it's like at every stage of the game, you must make a realistic assessment of your physical, technical, mental, emotional, and spiritual bank account, and see this is what you use to make the techniques work. Okay, and then when you're at the third cue or third dan, where am I at? What are the problems that I'm confronting? And then if we go with your analogy that or what you're saying is that the martial arts is a practice in problem solving.
Yeah.
And that at every stage and at every age, you will have to confront something, whether it be a guy in the street or because your leg doesn't move the way it does anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have the
For
stamina.
sure.
I had long COVID, so my lungs don't work anymore. Well, I'll just quit Aikido. No, if you really love Aikido, you want to try to figure out, how do I do Aikido with one kidney? How do I do Aikido with a prosthetic leg?
Yeah.
Not just, well, I guess can't do it anymore because I can't do physical. It's not, Aikido is not a physical art. Aikido is a mental, emotional, spiritual art that begins physically, right? And so at third cue, don't get caught up in all the what should I do things. Is this effective? At third dan, don't get caught up in am I effective? You know, what does this really mean? Just, if you like it, just train. Because at every turn of the road, you will be confronted with something that you have to overcome. And that's what the martial arts teaches you from the very first day, overcoming the self. And that's why Sensei advocated Masakatsu Agatsu. The true victory is the victory over yourself.
That's a great spot to end on, I think.
Thank you for listening and watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.